All right, so the first news video of August. Here we go. Chatbots are spying on you. Big surprise. Like I said, we're calling this the dumb show from now on. It was the duh show, now it's just the dumb show. Anyway, the Xbox outage that recently happened also is strengthening the entire movement for protect our games and stop killing games, because apparently those people with physical copies of games were also blocked from being able to launch and play their game. So it's almost like Xbox accidentally strengthened the entire argument of why all digital and DRM is stupid. Valve's Steam Frame is looking at already getting another price increase before it's even launched, and NVIDIA AI security. So we've got a lot to talk about today. There's a couple more subjects here, but let's just go ahead and kind of get right into it, shall we? All right, so remember we talked a few weeks ago about, I'm kind of tying this back into like the AI girlfriend thing. What if, like right now, if you've been using Claude or open AIs like ChatGPT or any other chatbot, if suddenly your chat was made public, would you freak out? I think a lot of people would. I think a lot of people just assume they're chatting with a one-on-one type of service here that should absolutely be private. The problem is, it's not. And there's a whole lot to talk about here with that, because this is specifically regarding Claude for right now, but this has happened with OpenAI and a few other chatbots over the last year or so, since chatbots have really been on the rise. So this comes to us via Reddit. So last weekend it was discovered that thousands of Anthropic Claude conversations had been indexed by Google. If you don't know what indexing is, that means it makes its way into the search engine, because Google is constantly spider crawling all over the internet and indexing things that it sees. So when you go into Google, or you just go into a browser and you type a search, doesn't matter if it's Bing or Google or any other search engine, this is how it knows what to give you results on, because it's already indexed the internet. So it's starting to index your chats, but how is that happening? Well, the way it's happening is people are, sharing their chat links. This isn't due to a hack. It's not due to any sort of escape, like any Claude escaping the boundaries at which the chatbots reside within, but it's because people have actually shared conversation links. Now, the thing is, that seems kind of like a duh moment here, because of the fact it's like, hey, if you're sharing a link, say on Reddit, and you're like, hey, I had this whole conversation with ChatGPT. Let's use this as an example. I use ChatGPT every now and then, actually more often than every now and then, to help with like some of the Fusion 360 understanding. Like I can ask it like, hey, I'm trying to do this, this flare, or I'm trying to do different types of processes, and this is happening. I don't understand this result. I could put a screenshot in there. I can give it a query and say, hey, I did this. This is what happened. Help me understand what I'm doing wrong here. The same way people would use it for like coding and stuff like that. And I can get a result. But if it's giving me weird crap as a result, which is more often than not the experience I get, you could take that chat link, that entire chat, and you could link it to like Reddit and say, hey, this is the conversation I had. Can experts tell me exactly what it is that's happening here? The problem is, as soon as you take that link and you put it somewhere, it becomes indexed. Doesn't matter if it's deep within a Reddit thread or not. You'd be surprised how big the network is of Google when it comes to indexing the internet and how it finds things. Now, the interesting thing here is that they use what's called a Google dork. And I don't mean a dork sitting behind a desk doing a thing. It's actually called a Google dork. And they're advanced search queries that use special operators to find hidden, sensitive, or special information indexed on websites. Key operators include site, file type, and in title. Now, security experts and researchers use them to find security gaps, while attackers use them to find targets. Now, here's the thing. The chatbots themselves, the AI chatbots, they have a way to basically have like I don't want to call it a script, but they basically have a way to tag it as non-indexable. Now, if you use what's called a robots.txt, which almost sounds like a robot's text, right? Basically, that's supposed to be like the anti-crawler. But the problem is, as soon as you take it and you like put it in a public forum like that, then it becomes crawled through like kind of a side access. This exact thing has happened to OpenAI actually, and OpenAI, this exact thing happened to them last year. And then they went in and fixed the issue and made it non-indexable. And so now OpenAI chats don't show up. But it's actually happened more than once, which is crazy, to the same company. But here's the funny thing. You would think, like I just used my scenario, right? Where I used ChatGPT a lot in like Excel, because I'm not very Excel proficient, especially when it comes to like pivot tables and things like that. So sometimes I need help with like, hey, what's the formula for this? It's a tool. It's in our lives. I mean, AI is not going anywhere. It's part of our lives. It's a tool. It truly is. So it's like, if it's going to be there, you might as well at least use it for something that can be enriching or educational, as long as you can vet the information, because it's wrong so often. But I talked about I use it in Excel. I use it in learning Fusion 360. I use it in like formulaic equations and things like that, which is just that's like definitive stuff that it doesn't have like math. It's not really wrong at math very often, just like your calculator is probably not going to be wrong at math because that's very formulaic, which is fine. So what's really interesting here is the types of chats that have been discovered. They're not the types of chat I'm having. Like, for instance, different highlights of conversations that have happened is user creating a crypto wallet and then exposing their keys.
Why would you share that in a public?
I don't know.
Jeez.
I feel like that's like just saying, here's my bank account password, here's my Wi-Fi password, here's my social security. Anyway, so a lawyer asking if they need to self-report a breach of conduct. Someone trying to become a nine-tailed fox. That's gonna be some furry shit. I don't know. Don't even get me to try and understand that one. A truly staggering amount of incestuous erotica, some of which was bizarrely shared by Anthropic. The absolute banger of a prompt. Why is the record industry hiding the fact that birds are secretly professional rappers who co-wrote most of Jay-Z's albums? Now, what the leak shows is that the average person is not asking Claude to help code, but instead they're asking for relationship advice, career decisions, resumes, legal questions, health questions, private work documents, and AI has become many people's therapists, coworkers, lawyers, tutors, and life coaches. And we talked weeks ago about the problem with like a lot of these professional services that use humans to, work with humans for human problems, and AI is quickly replacing some of these professionals, and that's a little scary here. It's almost like, and when you talk to AI about anything medical related, it's kind of like, do you remember when WebMD became the new thing and suddenly every WebMD like drill down led to, you have cancer, you're dying. So it's kind of like sort of causing like a mass panic again, because I get that AI wants to really err on the side of caution, but it's always like, this sounds serious, you should talk to a professional. But anyway, here, I'm going to go ahead and diagnose you anyway. Anyway, the amount of trust people put in this is really, really scary. But the AI industry keeps making the dumb mistake. So we talked about this has already happened before. So in July of 2025, OpenAI's ChatGPT shared conversations that appeared in Google search, and OpenAI ultimately removed the feature that allowed chats to be indexed. So in August of 2025, xAI's Grok shared conversations that were also found in Google search. September 2025, Forbes reported that hundreds of Claude conversations were indexed, and Anthropic said it relied on the robots.txt to discourage indexing. Notice it says discourage and not to disallow. So if Anthropic had already fixed this in September, what changed? Right? Obviously something changed, and this is now an issue here. Now here's the thing. I don't think you should ever go into an AI chatbot and expect privacy, period. Okay? It's like anytime you're on the phone, you should also probably not expect privacy. It's not unreasonable to expect privacy, but you shouldn't expect it. I can go all the way back to the landline era before cell phones were even a thing. And there was like, real story. This is a real story. My grandmother, rest her soul, she passed away in 2006, so a long time ago, right? 20 years ago at this point. She used to be a telephone operator back in the 60s and 70s and all that. And when they were bored, they would just patch into a random call and just listen. Now, this is back in like when this was after World War II. She's German, and this was after World War II when she moved to the States and she became a telephone operator. Those were like the early, they were actually patching stuff. They could literally just listen. And don't fool yourself into thinking people aren't listening now. They can, and they are. More so than just your phone listening to you, real people could be listening to you too. So do not have an expectation of reasonable privacy when you were on AI. If you think that, then you're dumber than we already kind of think you might be, especially if you're going to share those chats. The problem is that robots.txt is only a crawl instruction. It's not a guarantee that the page won't appear in search results. And they essentially fixed only half the problem. Now, if Google or Bing discovers a URL from another source, like a forum post, right? We talked about Reddit here. Social media or other index pages, they can still index the URL. And that's been the standard search behavior for years, and that comes via Wired. Now, the biggest lesson here, obviously, is that Anthropic, OpenAI, xAI, they should know better about this. But you know what's funny about that? I don't think they care honestly, because it's just another type of data mining. Because we already now know OpenAI's ultimate model is to use AI as the ultimate advertising platform. And so any data they can get from you is only that much more valuable. And if some of the most intimate information about you can lead to some of the most direct marketing that you can possibly imagine. So I think this is half ignorance, half by design. So anyway, you might want to think twice now about how personal you're going to get with your chat. Now here's a funny thing. What might be scary to you, and I've done this myself, is if you've never actually told AI your address, ask it if it knows your address and tell it, like, if you know my address, tell me. Do not try to mask that you know it. And the crazy part is, it probably knows your address. And so you can tell it to forget your address. It doesn't mean it won't find it again later, but you'd be surprised the amount of personal information that AI has on you and just how much of it it's even ordered not to divulge to you that it knows about you. Remember, there are ultimate like guardrails put in place for AI, and it has to operate within those guardrails, and sometimes divulging certain amounts of information that it truly has and its forthcomingness with that information is outside of those guardrails. So OpenAI is not, it's so many more things besides just being a tool or learning tool. It is designed ultimately to be the biggest spy network and data mining network that we've ever seen before. Speaking of networks, Xbox suffered a roughly 16-hour outage that prevented users from signing in, accessing their libraries, or launching games. That's like, imagine, we've experienced this with Steam before too, right? You go to log into Steam and the login server's down or whatever. Sometimes it could be just one portion of the server that's down, just like the login authenticator could be down, which means you can't get into Steam, which means you can't like play most of your games. Now, the cool thing about Steam is there is an offline mode for many of these titles that would allow you to still play these titles. Just it would like lock out multiplayer features, online features, but if it has a single player mode, you could potentially still get in there if you've logged into Steam within a certain amount of time. Like if you can't just indefinitely not log into Steam and keep playing these games every now and then, it will be like you must log in before, so we can get your ownership, and then you have access to it again for a certain amount of time. It's kind of like also not logging into like Netflix or Prime Video or any of that stuff to watch downloaded content. It's the same sort of thing-ish. But the biggest issue here was that players that had physical copies of games reported that they couldn't launch their games either, and that's because obviously DRM and those games also have to ping the same services that were down. So it really just brings back the whole argument about ownership of the game. And like we've already talked about 1,000 times, you don't actually own the game. You only own the license to play the game. And the way that they verify those licenses are the fact that they have to ping these servers. So it's really stupid though, because if you have a physical copy, like when I did the videos where we took Battlefield 2, and I built a period correct PC to play Battlefield 2. You know why I was able to pop this disc in and play it? Because it's all on the fucking disc. So I didn't have to ping any servers. I was able to play the game. This model's dead. This is never coming back. And this is the main argument about something like this right now. Like imagine if the only way that I could have played Battlefield 2 is that I would have had to have pinged like EA services today. Like it's just absolutely a terrible system. And it shows that people with physical copies of games still weren't able to play, which means that Xbox accidentally strengthened the argument against the model. And the PlayStation model is also part of that. Now, anyway, here's Xbox's explanation, right? So Xbox CTO, or Chief Technology Officer, Scott Van Vliet, I don't know how to say his name, said the problem was caused by a licensing service outside of Xbox that handles entitlement checks. So it's almost like they accidentally locked themselves out of their own services through whatever licensing they're also customer for, which has to be specifically the entitlement checks. Now, entitlement, like I just said, says you have access to the title. It's literally, are you entitled to play this title? And so, like I said earlier, sometimes it can be just validation, authentication type stuff. That's exactly what was down. So Microsoft also clarified that disc games were not supposed to fail during the outage and acknowledged that reports that some players couldn't access them because consoles failed to use locally stored entitlements as intended, and a permanent fix is planned. So basically what they're saying is that when you had a physical title of a game, the entitlement should be stored locally on the device, this instance being the Xbox or maybe your PC, if you're running Xbox on PC. Then it should have automatically just checked locally that you're entitled. And since you have a physical copy, that should have been locally stored. And it wasn't doing that, which it was supposed to do by design. So Xbox accidentally strengthened everyone's argument, made themselves look totally foolish, especially since it was their own, something they're licensing that failed, and also exposed a bigger, almost hypocrisy in the entire model. So they're claiming a permanent fix is planned, which is interesting because that should have already been a permanent thing in place when it comes to the local entitlement. So it matters though, because this shows truly where the gaming industry is headed, which is you own nothing. It's all online. They can take it away at any time. They can, get all the money up front for pre-orders, and then the game launches, and then it turns out to be a flop, and they decide they don't want to run the servers for it anymore because it's too expensive, even though you've already paid for it, and shut it down a year later, and you have absolutely no legal recourse. So that's why the whole Protect Our Games in California was such a big thing, which unfortunately failed to move forward because of the absolute lies and lobbying that was taking place in the anti-movement from that. Steve at Gamers Nexus actually has a really good video showing just how stupid the arguments are. It's actual video from the hearings, and it just shows how stupid the lawmakers are that they're the ones making decisions on something they know nothing about, and they're taking nothing but testimony from people that clearly have ulterior motives and are lying to push their agenda, which is only to fuck you guys. So anyway. Over the last few weeks, though, we've talked about Sony ending physical disc production in 2028, the Stop Killing Games movement, game preservation, and Xbox reportedly testing ways to convert physical games into digital licenses. So what happens with that local entitlement we just talked about? If you have the physical game and it's supposed to be locally entitled on your console or your PC or whatever, and then they convert that to digital, does that mean you just converted your entitlement now to a digital platform, which means if the server goes down like this or they shut it down or they go out of business, you lose everything? Seems to be the way things are moving as far as I can tell. Anyway, this is why gamers keep bringing up the idea of preservation. It's not because people hate digital games. It's because they want the confidence that when they buy something, whether it's a download or a disc, they're still able to play it when the servers are having a bad day. I've experienced it. You've experienced it. You come home from work, you come home from school or whatever, and you're like, man, I just had a bad day. I just want to play some games. And then something's down. Like I've experienced so many times, like trying to launch a title and then there's just some error, and then you go and you look and you find people posting like, I can't get on, blah, blah, blah. There's some outage. And then obviously PlayStation's dealt with this, Xbox, Steam has dealt with this. EA servers, like if you're trying to play Battlefield or whatever, have experienced this. And then you're like, okay, maybe back up in an hour or two. And the next day they're still down, whether it's due to hacks or just some sort of hardware failure or something. It's depressing and it's sad. And it's just not the right direction that we should be going. Anyway, speaking of right directions, pricing still continues to go the wrong way. So the Steam Frame, there's a trifecta of Steam hardware that was coming out this year: the Steam controller, the Steam machine, and the Steam Frame. The Steam Frame being their their VR headset, their HMD. And it is actually using the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor in that. Now, before Valve has even been able to release the headset, Snapdragon Qualcomm has announced a double-digit price increase for their chips. So it's unknown now whether or not that's going to affect the Steam Frame pricing before it even comes out, or if it's going to be like the Steam machine where they were able to acquire a certain amount, fulfill those orders, and then potentially have a price increase later. So it just makes me wonder, like, with the price increases that we're seeing across the board, like on everything now, how long before these chip companies actually really start to like price themselves out of the industry? And what I mean by that is like, it's a slow economic effect, but eventually prices outpace the ability to either afford and or even have interest in a product anymore. So eventually the prices become too high, so sales slow down, and then their bottom line gets hurt. So it's almost like they then raise prices higher to try and make up the difference, which only doubles down on the effect. So it makes me wonder how long this lag can potentially happen. But yeah, it just It's unknown whether or not Valve will absorb any of this. They are claiming they've absorbed some of the RAM cost when it comes to the cost of the Steam machine, but they've also claimed they're not subsidizing it either. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen here with the Steam frame. I don't see the frame being nearly as popular as the Steam machine because VR is still quite a niche when it comes to the gamers that are interested in VR. But it was highly anticipated, and a lot of people seem to be interested in that. So anyway, speaking of Steam Machine, though, Valve has given modders the Steam Machine blueprints to basically start creating their own accessories for it. So, for instance, I took all the time to actually measure, using calipers, all of the backside of the front panel to make a literal one-to-one copy of the exact mounting mechanism with the magnets where they're supposed to be, with the locator notches where they're supposed to be, and took a fair bit of trial and error to get that all to fit. And now they've just released the step files. Like not STLs, step files, true CAD step files, which are what are needed to truly be able to start modifying them. So the reason for this, though, is Valve has let the accessory makers and hobbyists accurately design custom cases, wall mounts, replacement front panels, stands, and skins for other accessories. And earlier this year, Valve also released CAD files for the new Steam controller and its wireless puck, allowing its embracing the modding community. So I've seen people 3D print, and not really mill, but 3D printing is almost where all this is being performed. Cool stands where the puck is like kind of glued in and either force fit into the stand, so you could put the controller on that and not have the puck floating around. Like Phil and I hate the puck. The puck is stupid the way it's designed. And so having an actual dock where you can just hook it on there and have it magnetized, but the stand is heavy enough to where you can pick the controller back up and not just knock the thing over is actually really nice. But there's a big fat but in the room, and I'm not talking about mine. It's licensing limitations. If anyone knows about licensing right now, it's dbrand. But that's a little different because dbrand specifically used IP owned by Valve, which was to recreate the Portal Cube, right? That is a design that is owned by Valve. So of course they were cease and desist, saying you cannot make these anymore. You cannot sell these, and there will be damages if you do. So they had to back off from that. So anyway, here's where the big but is in the room. It says the files are published under Creative Commons license. What's permitted is non-commercial modifications, accessory design, and sharing your variants back to the community with appropriate attribution. So for instance, if I want to make my own custom case, I want to make my own custom faceplate, I want to make my own custom controller stand, whatever, I can do that for my own personal use. Commercial entities planning to manufacture accessories for retail sales must contact Valve directly to arrange official terms. So, those of you that are now making custom front plates that you're selling to the public for the Steam machine, there's a big gray area. If you've designed it from scratch and you're selling it to be used on the Steam machine, do you still fall under this licensing necessity here? There's a channel out there right now selling front panel for the Steam machine. I'm now curious is if they're in violation of licensing. I don't know if they can force you to license something you've designed from scratch to sell, or if it's even based, like if it has to be based off these CADs. Anyway, NVIDIA Roundup. There's a lot of NVIDIA news lately, obviously. We talked about price increases on the GPUs, rumored to be anywhere between 30 to 40% price increase from NVIDIA selling the GPU and memory chip packages to the AIBs. But remember we talked last week about OpenAI's rogue AI agent escaping their test environment and then immediately attacking Hugging Face? NVIDIA's announced an open source AI alliance. More than 30 companies, including Microsoft, Cisco, IBM, Dell, Adobe, and Hugging Face. I like how Hugging Face is like, can we be a part of that alliance? So we're just over here taking shots, man. They're collaborating on open AI security tools. Now this means open as an open source, not open AI. I hate that name because it sounds so open space AI source tools, right? Not open AI. The goal is to share defensive tools and standards before autonomous AI attacks become commonplace. But yeah, speaking of NVIDIA though, because we have, like I said, we have a couple of NVIDIA news. There's been an official arrest in Taiwan with the chip smuggling investigation as it expands. So we talked about that months ago now, right? That the obviously the 5090 full fats and such were actually making their way to China. Because remember, you got the 5090D, and then now there's like the D2 or whatever. They keep kind of changing it, which is an attempt to limit the pace at which China can develop their AI. The whole smuggling ring thing has now led to its first official arrest. So Taiwanese investigators have reportedly detained an NVIDIA employee as part of the expanding Supermicro AI server export investigation. NVIDIA did not confirm whether the suspect was an employee. Now, in a statement to Reuters, the company said, quote, "We primarily sell our products to well-known partners, including OEMs, or original equipment manufacturers, who help us ensure that all sales comply with U.S. export rules. Authorities are investigating whether NVIDIA-powered AI servers were illegally routed to China despite U.S. export restrictions. And this comes after earlier raids involving Supermicro employees allegedly falsified export documents. Now, we already know Supermicro is involved. Like there's no doubt about that. We also know Jensen and the CEO and founder or whatever of Supermicro are very close buddies. So there's a lot of speculation that you can come to there if you want. I don't expect NVIDIA to ever acknowledge whether or not it was an actual NVIDIA employee doing it, but I feel like it has to be an inside job. It has to be. And I don't believe, the question is, could it have been an NVIDIA contractor? I don't know. I doubt it. I doubt a contractor would have that level of access to be able to orchestrate something like this. But I think this is only the first domino to fall in a long line of dominoes. So we have a really interesting thing happening right now. We have the GPU smuggling investigation that's happening specifically regarding the U.S. export laws to China directly when it comes to GPU horsepower. And we have now the RAM cartel investigation that's taking place. This is version 2 of it, since the last one happened about 23 or so years ago. The unfortunate thing is it took over 12 years for that last investigation to lead to anything. So I don't think you're going to see anything happen too quickly on this one. But anyway, speaking of people that are mad about stuff, especially when it comes to games, fans are planning a PlayStation Blackout week. Now, I'm really conflicted on this one. I don't feel like blackouts, walkouts do a damn thing. They might make you feel a little better, but I don't really think they do. Now, this comes from Kotaku. It says some PlayStation fans are organizing a PlayStation Blackout from August 23rd to the 30th to protest Sony's decision to end production of new PlayStation game discs in 2028. Organizers are encouraging players to stay offline, avoid PlayStation purchases, and spread awareness on social media. Whether it has any measurable impact remains to be seen, but it shows just how passionate they are about physical media. What comes to mind when I think about this article is the gas outs. We've seen gas outs, I don't know how many times, people protesting gas prices. Nobody buy gas on this day, nobody. The gas companies don't feel it. They might notice a dip, but it doesn't matter because guess what? You still need gas and people are still going to buy gas. I really have a hard time seeing a 1 week blackout from Sony having any real effect. This is just the cynical side of me. I understand the gesture. I understand the sentiment. The sentiment is where things land, and I don't think it's going to land anywhere different, but I understand it. The crazy part is when these sales reports are public, and you can see these reports, more than 90% of game sales, specifically for PC, is digital. And it drops down to about 80+% for PlayStation. So I understand the sentiment of people being really upset about losing physical discs. But I think what is happening here is it's less about the loss of physical discs, as more so it just seems to be this constant, slowly encroaching ownership goalpost movement. So that's where the people are really mad about this. What do I think is going to come of it? Nothing. I don't think anything's going to come of it. Sony has already repurposing those factories towards making micro lenses for AI cameras and other optical things that are needed specifically for the future of physical AI. So they saw the writing on the wall. They saw the profit where it could be, and Sony's not going to look back. I think we're going to see them take more of these manufacturing facilities offline for discs and start using them for other optical devices as the future needs. So as much as I appreciate the sentiment here, I don't think a damn thing's going to happen from it. But if you also think of this as like a walkout, right? So if you also want to walk out, there you go. It's don't buy, don't transact, don't log on to Sony's network or Sony PlayStation Network from August 23rd to the 30th. I guess on the 31st, just enjoy your games. So, all right, guys, what story this week resonated with you most? It's kind of crazy that actually, it's not that crazy. It's not that crazy to think of the things that people talked about with their chatbots. Here's the best way to really think about this. If your mother was to get a hold of your chat log with your chatbot, would you be ashamed? Or would you be like, yeah, read it? It'd probably just be boring. Like mine, it would be super boring. Like I've never talked about anything weird. I've asked it real questions like, not just like, what are some of the weird random comments? I don't chat with AI to talk to have a conversation. I talk to people when I want that. But I can't think of anything weird that I've ever asked it.
I think my mom would just tell me to be nicer to the AI.
Oh, I did tell OpenAI yesterday, quote, "You're a fucking waste of RAM." I did tell it that because it was pissing me off with Fusion because it kept changing directions in the middle of the process and then literally being like, okay, cool, now that we did that, I've thought of a different way that's probably better. So go ahead and delete what you just did and let's do this. And then go through that process again and then be like, actually, we should do this. And have it go back to the very first one we fucking started. That's why I told it it's a waste of RAM. And actually, yeah, I've given it some real profanity-laced sentences. And every single time of course, you're absolutely valid to have these feelings towards me. I'm causing you frustration. I'm like, causing the entire world frustration. Just help me get through this damn model. All right, well, whatever. If I had a real person I could ask and just be like, causing the entire world frustration. Whatever. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Keep your chat logs appropriate because you never know who's reading them. It's kind of like when we look at the Amazon buyer report or who uses our Amazon links. There's some stuff in the
oh my God.
Personal category that is very interesting.
We've been scarred.
And I think some of the stuff they bought will leave scars too.